going on, Fourth and Inches podcast listeners? You got Stevie P and Kev. What's up, Kev?
What's going on, Stevie? How you doing today?
Good. All right, guys. So we are going to finish up what we left off with last. Drops, buy low and sell high. So I guess I'll start it off, Kev, with guys that I'm dropping. I'm dropping Rex Burkhead. I kind of feel like I'm done. Waiting for the explosion that I've been hearing about all year. He had one game 2 weeks ago, I believe, where he scored a touchdown on a nice pass by Tom Brady, but not he hasn't done anything enough. And with the injury now,
I think he got hurt in that game. I actually don't think
he did. And with the injury now, I kind of feel like other guys are being utilized, and I kind of feel like in Bill Belichick's offense. Exactly. And Bill Belichick's offense, eventually somebody's got to drop off, and I feel like it's going to be Burkhead.
Mm-hmm.
All right. My next guy is AP. If you still have Adrian Peterson and you've been watching football and you still have him on your team, I'm confused as to why. Because, you know what I mean? Like, he's not getting the touches. He's really not getting the goal line work because, when they get to the goal line, they've been throwing. I don't really see why he's on a team.
I agree. I have no idea why they signed him to begin with if this is what they were going to do with him. He's a workhorse. You got to kind of feed AP. He's not really going to get his on, 8 or 9 excuse me. He's not really going to get his on 8 or 9 carries. So I have no idea why they signed him.
I hear that. Our next drop is Marty B, Martellus Bennett. He's just not involved enough in the offense for me to hold on to him any further, especially when you have guys like Cook out there. We talked about, Charles Clay, ASJ, and Jared Cook. Those are just 3 names right there that I feel more comfortable having in my lineup every week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wouldn't drop Marty just yet, but because of the tight end wasteland, he does have the talent. He did it last year. I mean, of course, it was the Patriots system, and Gronk wasn't there, but Marty's a talented football player, so I think. He could come around and start getting his. I would hold on to him for a little bit, but maybe 1 or 2 more weeks would be it.
I hear that. Our next guy, me and Kev were consensus on this. Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay, to me personally, he's just not on the field enough or involved enough to warrant keeping him on my roster. So I'm just going to be dropping him.
Yeah, they had some guy T.J. Jones out there. He was seeing more targets and more playing time. I didn't even know if I thought Golladay was hurt watching the game because I didn't even see him out there.
Yeah.
But at this point, I mean, you're not waiting around anymore. The hype is over and the reality creeped in. So Galladay's probably gone. I'll jump into one of mine real fast, Steve.
Yep.
Jamison Crowder. I watched the game last night. I don't remember him even getting a target in the game. He just isn't involved in the offense, and the offense is actually moving. So, I think I'm done with Crowder at this point. We've been telling you to hang on, but for me personally, at this point, I think I would get rid of him.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about this, guys, from our earlier podcasts, that you should wait 4 weeks on a guy before you're willing to give up on him, especially the guy that you drafted before, round 10. And we are at week 5, so, if you're feeling like, he's done, you have more than enough power from us to, say, all right, I'm done with Crowder.
Yeah. I'm sure you probably are not in agreement with that, Steve. I know you were high on him last week.
Yeah, I still like Crowder only because I feel like I think game flow last night, and if you watched last night's game, I know, I kind of feel like they were trying to go deep a little more yesterday.
They were.
So I kind of feel like that's not Crowder's game. Crowder is more of an underneath guy, and it looked like they were trying to air it out I don't know exactly why they would try to do that against Kansas City, knowing how good their corners are. But I guess maybe because no Eric Berry, they thought they could take advantage of the deep throw yesterday. So I think that kind of contributed to Crowder's terrible performance. But like I said, I kind of feel like he will eventually get the targets that we all kind of hoped for. But, I understand you giving up on him right now.
Yeah, I mean, I see Jordan Reed not even playing, and he's going to take a lot of work when he gets back.
Yeah.
Eventually, I think Crowder's going to get. I don't think there's going to be enough work out there. I actually like Josh Doctson. It's a shame he dropped that ball last night.
Yeah.
I actually liked what I was seeing out of him. I heard reports that him and Jay Gruden just don't get along and don't like each other.
Yeah, I did hear that also.
And that's why he's struggled with getting on the field.
Yeah.
But the dude made a big play last week. This week he dropped his chance this week, but I just don't think there's a lot of work. There's so much production, so much work to go around there. I just don't know if Jamison Crowder is going to be able to eat like that.
I hear that. My next guy is Ted Ginn Jr. For me, Teddy Ginn was never really a guy that I was drafting at all anyway. But, right now he is, let me look it up real quick. He is, Ted Ginn Jr. is 49% owned, 57% owned. It actually has dropped because he was 90% in the beginning of the season, so I guess gradually he's been losing, people have been dropping off of him. But, he was somebody that was really hyped because of, Willie Snead being out, and for me, Ted Ginn had one good season, and that's really all he's ever done. So just not a guy that I even want on my team, so I'm willing to just get rid of him if you have him.
Yeah, he's he's a poor man's Deshaun Jackson at this point. He just kind of he's going to catch you a 60-yard touchdown, or he's not going to do anything at all. It's just probably basically been like that his whole career. A couple weeks ago he had that, or last week he had that long one against the Saints.
Yeah.
But against the Panthers for the Saints. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But he's either hit or miss, and it's not enough hits right now for you when there's other guys out there you could probably go get.
I hear that. And just to go over his production so you guys kind of understand what we're saying. I mean, he was 4 for 53 against Minnesota. He was 3 for 24 against New England with no touchdowns in either game. Then he went against Carolina, which, he played for them last year, so you want to show up in that game. He was 2 for 44 and 1.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So, and then the other, against Miami this past weekend, which Miami looked dreadful, he was only 2 for 25. So, at this point, I'm willing to, I think, if Willie Snead had played in this game, I don't see Ginn even catching those 2 passes. I kind of think they knew they were going to bye week 5, and they said, you know what, let's just sit Willie until the bye week's over, get him more acclimated into some playing time at practice. And, now that Willie's back, I kind of think Ginn is just complete garbage. He's not somebody you even want to have at all.
I totally agree on that one. My next guy is Terrence West. We talked earlier in our waiver podcast about Alex Collins and how he started taking over for West in this, in yesterday's game. Alex Collins did have a fumble, but I just think that at this point, it seems like they're trying to insert him into Terrence West's role. Like I said, there was a play last week where I remembered in that Jacksonville game where Terrence West ripped off like a 12-yard run. He was so pumped. He was yelling at the Ravens sideline like he was saying, "Give me the ball." And the very next play, they handed it to him and he fumbled. And John Harbaugh was on the sideline ripping him a new one. Mm-hmm. So, you do those kinds of things and other players perform, you're going to lose your spot. And I just see that happening to Terrence West. I think it's time for me to, I think I'm going to get rid of him.
I completely agree. In this past game, he was 4 for -7. The Steelers are a good defense, but I don't care what team you play for. You cannot run the ball 4 times and have -7 yards. It's just, and when you look at what Alex Collins did on the other side of the ball where he was averaging over 9 yards per carry behind the same exact offensive line, I think, at this point, it's safe to call it quits.
Exactly.
All right,
I guess at this point we get into some buy lows from that we've seen. I'll go first. You got a few more than I got, Steve. I really only just went with 2 here.
Okay.
Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon to me is a buy low because I think that his schedule actually is pretty favorable. They've already played the Broncos one time and the Chiefs one time. So the 2 hard games from their division are already 2 of their harder games from the division are already done. This week, I love them. I've been telling everybody this New York Giants season, they have not been stopping the run. I don't know if Snacks Harrison ate too many snacks during the off season, but they haven't looked like they did last year. Last year, I remember they were I think at one point definitely the number 1 run defense because they were talking about it during like Ezekiel Elliott matchups. That's all I remember hearing was Ezekiel Elliott versus the number 1 rush defense.
Mm-hmm.
This year is totally different. I'm pretty sure they've given up over 100 yards rushing in every game. I know every running back has at least there's been one running back that's seen at least 75 yards against them in every game.
Mm-hmm.
Amir Abdullah had 78, actually. I think that was probably the lowest total. Jacquez Rogers just had 86. The running backs from Philly ripped them apart. Zeke did in the first game, and Abdullah did. They've been getting ripped through all season, and I think that Melvin Gordon has a good week. He's actually going to be like my play of the week at running back in daily fantasy.
I hear that. Yeah, I like that call. If you can get Melvin Gordon, especially after a shit game that he had this week, I definitely would, try to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if I looked at his matchups coming up, he's got the Giants, he's got Oakland, then he does have Denver. But I'm not scared of Giants or Oakland. After Denver, he's got New England. We all know what New England is right now. Then he goes on bye. He's got Jacksonville, which is not a tough run defense like we think. They just got shredded for almost 300 yards by the Jets running backs.
Mm-hmm.
You got Buffalo after that. That's tough. That's a tough matchup. But then you got Dallas, Cleveland, Washington, Kansas City, which is tough. And then you got the Jets to finish it off. I think Melvin Gordon's got a nice little schedule upcoming, maybe 3 tough matchups for the rest of the season. I know that line is a little shaky, but I think he's going to turn it around.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right, so my player is Demaryius Thomas. Demaryius Thomas, after coming off of a game where he had 1 catch for 11 yards.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. Honestly, I think they got up in the game and they kind of were just like take the foot off the pedal because Derek Carr got hurt in the game and they weren't really worried about scoring a whole lot of points. They got a touchdown from their tight end, which was a crazy phenomenal catch, upright sideline. But I really don't feel like they needed to score a lot more points than what they did, so they didn't try. They were killing them in the run. I think I want to say Oakland had 25 total yards rushing the entire game.
I know it was an ugly day. I know Marshawn's totals were like 13 yards.
Yeah, it was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. And I don't feel like they needed to score a lot of points, so they kind of just said, "All right, we're just gonna do what's working and kick field goals." We're not scared of this team to have to start throwing the ball. So they kind of got away from it, and it showed in the numbers, for both Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. But I love going after guys that are on bye weeks because people freak out when guys go on bye weeks. They kind of are like, "Oh, this guy's not, he's not playing. Let me, if I can get something for him, let me get somebody who is playing." So I love targeting guys that, Emmanuel Sanders is the same thing. I didn't write Emmanuel Sanders' name down, but he's also, with Demaryius Thomas in this, guys that I would go after.
I like that strategy too of going after people on bye weeks because, like you said, people do stress, and if you can get guys like that because somebody's maybe somebody's late at receiver and this week he's got Demaryius off,
mm-hmm.
He might want to take a number a number 2 receiver, even number 3 receiver, and a running back or something like that.
Yeah, somebody in a good matchup.
Have somebody that he can fill in there, and people will do stupid things. So definitely a good time to target trade, people to trade for.
Yeah.
I do like that strategy.
Yeah. So go ahead, Kev. What's your next one?
All right, next on my list, I have Jay Ajayi. We have all seen the last 2 games what Jay Ajayi has done. It's been ugly. I really just think that I trust Adam Gase as a head coach, and I think what they're going to see is that they're abandoning the run a little too much.
Mm-hmm.
They're not giving him the ball. He's another one, like I was saying about AP earlier. You got to feed the beast, man. Like, he's one of them guys you got to give the ball 20 times. And in the last 2 games, he's had 11 carries and 12 carries.
Mm-hmm.
They've gotten down quick in those games and they've abandoned the run. But I think Adam Gase is going to be smart enough to turn it around. This week he's got Tennessee, he's got Atlanta, then he's got the Jets, Baltimore, and Oakland. I like those 5 matchups. He does have Carolina after that, but 2 of his final 5 weeks are against New England, which right now, if New England's going to keep this up, you're going to be wanting to start guys against New England.
Oh, yeah.
I like Jay Ajayi's schedule going forward, and I like Adam Gase as a head coach, and I think he's smart enough to turn it around and realize he's got to pound Ajayi.
I hear that. So my next guy, I agree with that completely. Everything he just said. I'm going after Ajayi in a bunch of leagues, and not actually giving up a whole lot for him and hoping that I get him. So I definitely agree with that. Marshawn Lynch is my next guy. We just talked about it. Marshawn Lynch had a terrible game this week, but me and Kev called that, if you guys remember. We called that game, and it happened just the way we said. We said he was going to get, he was going to get less than, 15 carries probably because they were going to be losing the game, and he just wasn't going to be, good this week. But going forward, we like him, and I haven't changed my mind. Especially now with the Derek Carr injury, I feel like I want Marshawn Lynch even more now because I feel like they're not going to have a choice but to start running the ball 20 times a game, with Marshawn, and then sprinkling in the other running backs, Rashard and Washington also. So I could see the teams, trying to help E.J. Manuel out by running the ball a whole lot more. And with that offensive line, they should be doing that to begin with.
I 100% agree. I think this is the perfect time to go get Lynch, especially if the owners of those teams are down on him. I just think that they're going to, like you said, have to run the ball in order to win these next couple games without Derek Carr. Like, they're not going to be able to throw E.J. Manuel out there. He's already been, he was a starter in 2 different years.
Yeah.
In Buffalo, and last year I know he got a few stars for Tyrod, and he's not a good football player, not good at quarterback, and they're going. Like I said, if they're going to stay in this playoff hunt, because that division is so tough.
Yeah. If
they're going to stay in that playoff hunt, they're going to have to run the ball for these next 4 or 5 weeks. What is it, 2 to 6 that he's supposed to be out?
Yeah.
So
yep.
Let's call it 4 weeks, and split it down the middle. If you got to go with E.J. Manuel for 4 weeks, they're going to have to run the ball in order to win those games. And right now the Chiefs are 4-0, so they can't get too far behind.
Yeah,
so I expect Marshawn to start, seeing a lot of workload. I think upward of 20 carries a game.
I completely agree, and I'm going after him in almost every league. Martavius Bryant is my next guy I want to get on my team. I know me and Kev differ here. I'll give you my reasoning, and then Kevin will give you his argument back. Martavius Bryant, if you look at his stats throughout the years, he's always been a bad player at away games. Away from home, it's almost like Big Ben. Martavius literally runs the exact same path as Big Ben. It's at home you start him, away you sit him. So, and his home games are phenomenal. The guy's over 100 yards and a touchdown in almost every home game. The one thing I do like about Martavius Bryant, and it makes me want to have him on my team is if you watch this past week's game, Kevin actually, he saw bits and pieces of it, but I actually, it was my game to watch this week. There was a couple of penalties that were called on balls thrown to him, and he should have ended with over 80 yards and a possible touchdown. Actually, he was throwing a ball down right sideline that they called a penalty, an encroachment penalty, and to save Big Ben from getting hit, they blew the whistle and stopped the play. But that could have been easily a touchdown, and then he would have finished with over 90 yards and a touchdown. So, I like Martavius, and he's somebody I want to try to get on my team.
Yeah, I just my thing was what I was just hearing, from other podcasts and things is that he was having trouble with Ben, and their chemistry just wasn't working. They said Juju was in the slot most of this game. Was he in the slot, Steve? I'm guessing.
Yeah, he was. I want to say
much most of the game.
Yeah, he had like 30 or 40 snaps, 30 something snaps in the slot.
Okay, yeah. So I know Juju was in the slot most of this, and he caught a touchdown. I just think that until I see it from Martavis, I know week 2 he had a good week, and your thing, like you said, it's the home and road thing, but I gotta just see it more consistently for me personally. One game in 4 games of play is just not something that I could sit there and look at and say, all right, well, this is a guy I'm going to start in my lineup consistently, and try to target as far as a trade. I just, I'd rather hang on to a guy. I don't know how low you can get him. What would you be offering if you were going to offer from Martavis Bryant?
At this point, his numbers have been pretty bad, so I might be offering like a number 3 running back, and that's it. Just trying to get the owner that has already given up on him to give me a player that I actually like.
Gotcha.
As far as number 3 running back wouldn't be a bad try. I wouldn't be against doing it for that. I wasn't sure if you were talking like number 2 running back or something. No. But I guess that's not really buying low. I guess if you're giving number 2, but yeah. I guess his numbers just haven't been good enough to really, warrant getting that.
Yeah.
See, and my whole thing is, I'll just go over his schedule really quick. So this week he's got Jacksonville in New England. I mean, in Pittsburgh. He's got Kansas City at Kansas City. He's playing a lot of his away games early in the season, so a lot of his, later games will be at home. So, in Week 14, I'll just give you the playoffs. Week 14, they play Baltimore at home. They play New England at home, and then they play Houston at Houston. So, for Week 14 and 15, he's a play that, I would like to have against those 2 matchups.
Definitely good matchups, I will say that. Definitely good matchups.
Yep.
Do you want to go with your last one there, Steve?
Yeah, and DeMarco Murray is my last one. We all seen what happened with DeMarco Murray this week. He only had 7 carries for, I believe it was 17 yards. He just, game flow completely. Game flow completely erased him. It wasn't his fault. They went down. Mariota threw an early interception, and that kind of killed them. But it was 7 for 31. 7 for 31 isn't a bad yards per carry. Really, it's a little bit less than, I guess, it's like right around 4 yards a carry. But my whole thing is, DeMarco Murray is the type of player that he can go off. We saw it last week with the 70-yard touchdown. He has that ability, and, he really hasn't been catching the ball as much as he has in past years this year either, which has been hurting him. But, I definitely can see...
He got a lot of weapons, though, in that pass game. I think that's probably why.
Exactly. So, I still love DeMarco Murray, and I want him on my team if I can get him. I'm just going to go over matchups real quick for him. And, normally when we go buy low, we're going to show you the matchups because most of these guys that we're picking have have really good matchups coming up. He's got Miami this...
I 100% agree with this, by the way, Steve. I'm big DeMarco Murray as a buy low candidate right now as well.
Yeah,
but go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, yeah, definitely. So we have Miami, Indianapolis, Cleveland, then a bye. Then he's got Baltimore, Cincinnati at home. Then he plays Pittsburgh, Indiana, Houston, Arizona, San Francisco, and the Rams in the playoffs. So to me, the tough part of his schedule is over, and the rain on me, fantasy points are coming.
Exactly. Plus, you got to remember, Mariota now he's going to be a little hurt. They may not want to drop him back as much. This game especially might be handing the ball to DeMarco and those running backs a little bit more often to try and keep Mariota safe back there with that hamstring.
I hear that. All right, so we're going to finish up with our sell highs. I'll start us off with the sell highs. My sell high right now is Terrell Williams. Like me and Kev were talking about earlier, Mike Williams is coming back in the next week or two. So as soon as Mike Williams comes back is when I stop playing Terrell Williams at all. so take advantage of this 6-catch, 106-yard in a touchdown game and sell him to a guy who is wide receiver needy immediately.
Yeah, I totally agree. I actually picked Mike Williams up in two of my leagues. I think that, especially when I could just stash him on an IR spot, that made it 100% easier. But I definitely would 100% agree. I think when Mike Williams comes back, Tyrell Williams just gets kicked to the curb because Benjamin's had a little bit more of a better season. Mm-hmm. Tyrell had a good game this week,
yep.
But they could basically flip flopped over there. I think Mike Williams is going to come in and just be he's going to fill in for that side of the field immediately, and I think that the other side is basically going to be a fight between Benjamin and Williams, and that's not something I want. So if you can get a nice upside player right now for Tyrell Williams, that would be good.
I hear that. Who do you got, Kev?
Okay, my first guy I want to talk about is Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin had a nice week this week. Cam was targeting him pretty frequently. He was going after Funchess a lot more. Funchess got way more targets, but Benjamin this week goes 4 for 104. He had a couple long catches down the field. Mm-hmm. And made his day a little bit easier to look at with a positive note.
Yeah,
Kelvin Benjamin has never been consistent like this. So if somebody's looking at that, and another like we said, a wide receiver needy team is looking at Kelvin Benjamin and how he just kind of went off this week with over 100 yards, that might be somebody that target the trade and try to get somebody nice for somebody who just kind of had a breakout week, but probably isn't going to be consistent because he never has.
Yeah, completely agree. He's one of the hit or miss players, and somebody that if when he hits, you want to sell because players might be like, ooh, he's healthy now, and he just caught 4 for 100. Let me jump on that.
Yeah, exactly. And this was a game against the Patriots. I've been kind of hammering the Patriots D right now in this podcast, but this was a game against the Patriots where Devin Funchess had 77 for 70 and 2 touchdowns. They just Cam had a really nice day. You got to see Cam's consistency a little bit more too, and if Cam's not going to be consistent, then Benjamin's not going to be consistent. So, Benjamin's definitely a sell high candidate right now.
I hear that. All right, so my next guy is Lamar Miller. If you guys have watched Miller throughout the season, you can kind of figure out what's been going on here, and he has not been good. He has not been good. Lamar Miller in the first 4 games so far was 17 for 65. That's less than 4 yards a carry. Then he was 18 for 61, also less than 4 yards a carry. Then against New England, he was 14 for 56, which is a little bit over 4 yards a carry. Well, a little bit. Actually, it's still a little under 4 yards a carry. And then against Tennessee, he was still 19. Yes, he was basically 4 yards a carry. He was still 19 for 75. You know, what made him blow up this week was the 4 catches for 56 yards and a touchdown. But in every other game, you know, he's been 2 for 31, 3 for 26, 1 for 7. You know, this was just one of those games where everything happened to work. It all came together, and, you know, their offense was just in a mode where Tennessee just couldn't handle them, and they got blown out. So this is the quintessential sell high game on a player.
This really is. This really is. I mean, we've been talking about D'Onta Foreman eating into his workload now for a couple weeks, and this guy just went off. He had 2 touchdowns. We talked about Watson and how, you know, this was just an electric game for him. He threw a pass to Lamar Miller for a touchdown. Lamar got another run for a touchdown. He hasn't been, you know, he hasn't done it all year. This was a huge game, and if you can get some, you know, a number 1 wide receiver, a low side number 1 wide receiver, or even a high end number 2, this is a perfect time to trade Lamar Miller.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I mean, he's just a guy that I am desperately trying to get rid of this minute. You know, if I have him on my team, I'm trying to find that guy who wants him.
Yes, exactly. 100% agree. All right, my next guy I'm going to talk about is Bilal Powell. We talked earlier in the previous podcast about Elijah McGuire, and what I was saying about him was that Matt Forte basically said he loves how this backfield's working, and it's going to be a great committee and all this. And you know, I think Bilal Powell is the best running back actually on the team, but if they got a, you know, 32-year-old veteran in there who's still playing, who still can, you know, still looks good when he gets the ball, which Matt Forte was before he got injured. He was still looking pretty good. Mm-hmm. Then you got another up-and-coming guy. The team's not winning. I just think that this is going to be kind of a timeshare. Bilal Powell just ripped off that big game. He had like 196 total yards. He had 175 rushing, I believe. This is like the perfect time to sell him high. You know, especially with, you know, the couple injuries to the running backs. You know, with Dalvin Cook going down, Chris Carson going down. There's probably a few owners out there looking for running backs too that would probably give up a nice, you know, low end number 2 wide receiver for Bilal Powell.
I completely agree. Really no need to elaborate any further. I agree 100%. My next guy is LeGarrette Blount. LeGarrette Blount went from having no carries in a game to having a pretty good game against the Giants and a touchdown. And then this week he freaking went bananas. He, you know, had a really big rushing game. So for me, I don't think you're going to get too much for LeGarrette Blount, but you know, if you can change, you know, like we just said, you know, with the injuries to running backs, if you can trade him for a low end number 2, you know, a high end number 3, and a low end number, you know, 2 or number 3 running back in exchange for him, I would try that and see what happens. You know, he is getting some carries, getting some work, and you know, before the bottom falls out on him, I would like to get rid of him if I can.
I agree. I would probably not agree. I'm sorry. Wow, what am I saying? I actually think I would hold on to Blount. Like I said, I think that the rushing game for the Eagles is really picking up, and I think I want to be part of that. So, you know, if they're going to be rushing the ball this much, and they're going to be handing it to Blount and Smallwood, and then they're going to see a lot of carries, and you know, I think I would hold on to LeGarrette Blount for a little bit longer to see how that Eagles rushing game turns out. And if, you know, a couple weeks goes by and you don't see what you want to see, then I might get rid of him. But like I said, the Eagles rushing game is really picking up. I don't want to get rid of Blount just yet. You know, that's me personally, Steve. You know, you obviously disagree.
Yeah.
You know,
we are going to disagree, guys.
Yeah, we are going to disagree.
That's what this podcast is about.
You know, it does happen here and there. Because even the next guy, you know, Steve kind of gave me this guy, and I actually disagree with Steve on this one, was Chris Hogan.
Mm-hmm.
I actually, Steve saying to sell high on Chris Hogan, I actually disagree with that. I want pretty much anybody in that Patriots offense, because they're going to have to score a lot of points in order to stay in games right now. And that makes it, to me, like Brady is targeting Chris Hogan in the end zone, and he's or in the red zone, I'm sorry. And on top of that, he's gotten a couple long ones. I think Chris Hogan's probably a guy that I would continue playing. I don't think I would trade him just yet. I think I would hold on to him a little while longer, because, like I said, the Patriot offense is going to have to score a lot of points in order to stay in these games.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with what Kev just said. I agree that it's an offense I want to be a part of. My thing is, Chris Hogan has scored 4 touchdowns in the past 3 games. So to me, it's a player that you can throw into, just for an example, you can throw into a mix to get a really good player. And I'm talking
Hogan and Bilal Powell, or Hogan and Lamar Miller.
Exactly. You can package deal them.
2 of those sell highs, like
exactly.
Hogan and Lamar Miller, and get maybe like a who are you thinking? Like Devontae Freeman?
Like a Devontae Freeman or something like that. Somebody who's really desperate at wide receiver, or really desperate even at running back. If you give them a running back who just blew up plus a wide receiver who's been having a really good season so far, that might just give them the edge to say, you know what, I like this deal, I'm going to take it. You know what I mean?
I agree.
Especially like
I agree. If you can do it like that, I definitely agree. If you're going to mix them up with somebody else and then try to go after a high quality running back or a high quality receiver, definitely, then I agree.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wouldn't be getting rid of Chris Hogan for just anything at this point.
No, definitely.
I would hang on to Chris Hogan if unless you're teaming him up with another player to go get a high quality top number 1 wide receiver or number 1 running back.
Yeah, I hear you. So yeah, that's basically it for us tonight, guys. We went over all of our guys, and we hope you take some of our advice and it helps you out and you win a championship. So that's what we're about here.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're about here.
We just want you guys. Hey, remember though, you manage your own teams. We're just throwing ideas out there on what we've seen. Like we said, we watch the games, so we're just throwing ideas out there on what we've seen. You manage your own team. Don't listen to us and blame us if your team screws up.
Exactly.
Because you make your own decisions.
Exactly. So, we're giving you insight on guys who actually watch film, and we see what's going on, and we want you guys to try to take advantage of that. So, yep. Like we said, guys, good luck this year. You know what I mean? Listen to what we have to say, and if you like it, hit us up with a like and share it with some friends, and good luck this year, guys.
All right, everybody.
Peace out.